Good morning. Good afternoon. What? Will you all do me the biggest favor in the world? And I think it's going to help you too. Only those that are able, I want you to stand. If you're not able, that's fine. But the ones, whether you're standing or not, I want you to get this song, and I want you to really lean into it. We're going to sing it together, and we're going to sing it fun. We're going to clap and really have a good time with it. It's Come and Go With Me to that land. Number 1008. 1018.
Sunday, so this feels right and good. And it is Black History Month, so we have great music. Thank you, Darnell, and thank you today to our volunteer choir who are just showing up. Let's begin. As we enter into worship, put away the pressures of the world that ask us to perform, to take up masks, to put on brave fronts. Silence the voices that ask you to be perfect. This is a community of compassion and welcoming. You do not have to do anything to earn the love in these walls. You do not have to be braver, stronger, smarter, better than you are in this moment to belong here with us. You only have to bring the gift of your body, no matter how able. Your seeking mind, no matter how busy. Your animal heart, no matter how broken. Bring all that you are and all that you love to this quiet hour so we can worship together. Please rise in body or in spirit. Let's light our chalice, the symbol of our faith, of our passion, of the fire we bring to the world.
The spoken words are in the program. Please join me. We light this chalice, the flame of our heritage. May it ignite hope in our lives, in the community, and in the world. I invite you to sing hymn number 1040 in your field hymnals. Let's Singing again, that's right. I invite you, while seated, whether here or at home, to read or join in our unison affirmation. It's printed in the order of service, and some of you have it memorized because you've been reading it for 30 plus years. Unto the Church Universal, which is the depository of all ancient wisdom and the school of all modern thought, which recognizes in all prophets a harmony, in all scriptures a unity, and through all dispensations a continuity, which abjures all that separates and divides, and always magnifies humanity and peace, which seeks truth in freedom, justice in love, and individual discipline in social duty, and which shall make of all persons a beloved community, unto this church and unto all its members, known and unknown throughout the world, we pledge the allegiance of our hands and hearts. And in this pledge, we greet our neighbors. I invite you to rise and gather as you feel comfortable. And if handshaking is not good for you, I invite the sacred elbow connection. Welcome.
Okay, friends, can you find your way back to your seats? Every Sunday we take this time, this 1 hour, 1 hour of the whole week, and we just sort of move out of the rest of the world, but we can't really leave it behind. And I know for me, and I'm gonna guess for you, I'm wearing some of those things that are swirling in my brain the rest of the week. Even when I come in here, even when I try to take this 1 hour, carve 1 hour out for something entirely different. And so before we start our prayer, we can think about some of those things that we are carrying, that we are weighing, that are weighing on us. And I'm going to tell you that this week, the thing that is most interesting to me is what's happening in Northern Ireland. And the First Minister from Sinn Féin, and some of you know I studied in Ireland and in Northern Ireland, and I studied the war. And when I met with people from Sinn Féin, it was a secret. I wasn't allowed to tell anyone who or where or when. Even after, I wasn't allowed to tell anyone what we talked about. And I think about the difference in the world between then and now. And it is, for me today, a sign of huge hope. Because in a place where there was no hope, there was no hope. It felt to me, being there, that there was no chance this would ever end. That things have shifted this much. And I think that's the healing this world needs. It's the healing we need here as we as a country become also so divided. Let's move into a place of silence by letting the sound of the chime fill the space both externally and internally. halfway between the winter solstice and spring equinox. We pray today in the spirit of the goddess Bridget, who brings with her the turning season. After a long, cold, and sunless January, we are grateful for a revolving earth, bringing us through the vastness of space, so dependably cycling season to season. With her blessing, we prepare ourselves for the end of winter with gratitude. We pray that this turning, this move toward the sun also brings us closer to a world in balance. As we hover between winter and spring, may we find equity in our social and economic systems, offering justice and equilibrium in this changing season. And together we sing. Today we hold too many of our beloveds who are suffering. Rose's sister Novella passed recently. We surround Rose and her family in love as they find their way through this season of grief. Our own George Marshall has also passed. We remember him in love. We are holding Nina today, and Joe and Lisa. We are holding Malika, Sheila, Sandy. We are holding Marianne and Stephen today. We remember all who suffer, who are afraid, who are sick, who are alone, and we pray that their seasons of anguish are also turning.
It is story time. Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me well? Whenever we're floating out into space, we never quite know for sure. I want to tell you a little bit of a story about my own growing up. I grew up in a what we thought of as a middle-class suburban neighborhood. I would not learn into my mid-20s that, like a lot of folks in our area and generation, we thought we were middle class, but we were actually working class. But we aspired to what it was, and so we said it that way. I grew up in a multi-generational household. My mom and dad were there. I am the only kid, which tells you something about my personality for those that believe in that. Well, like all these things, it's all magic, right? But my grandma lived with me, and my uncle. Now, my uncle was my mom's brother from a second marriage, stepdad, and so he was like 14, 16 years younger than my mom. So we had a bunch of generations in the household. Parents are like the very beginning of the baby boomers or very end of the silent generation, for anyone that believes in generational magic like that, right? And so I was an only kid, but I grew up with a lot of adults around me of various ages. And most in the neighborhood that I grew up in, that was all the houses. Most of the other homes were owned by grandma or grandpa if he was still alive, and also were multi-generational. I grew up in an all-black neighborhood. We were the white Italian German Catholics. Across the street from me were the Jewish family without kids. I grew up across from my parish, St. John Vianney, and a middle school that I could walk to across the street. I even had a kindergarten I could walk to, and then they moved us to a different elementary school. And things were, hard or easy at different times, like most people have, hard or easy. And I remember when I finally got into college, I had a bad break, got ill, and I had to drop out and figure out my life and get a job as a custodian for a while, which led me into the ministry, and things worked out. And I really didn't think much of it. Middle class, working class family, some things are rough, some things are easy. But ultimately I made it through. And I was going back to my parents still live in the same house. And that neighborhood is still multi-generational, like it was. But you go back in your 20s or your 30s and you find out that your friends you grew up with, some are doing well, they took over the automobile shop, good job for them. Others went on to go to school to be a teacher. Well, I shouldn't say that. They went on, one of my friends, Monica, she went on to school to be a lawyer. And we were really excited for her because she broke out of the class. But she had to drop out to care for her mom who had diabetes and wound up becoming a teacher, which is a great job, right? I mean, teachers are amazing. Any job is a great job if you love it. But I started looking around and all of my friends stayed in the same economic bracket growing up. All of them were black in that neighborhood, and I got out. There's something about that I remember when we talk about race, and this is Black History Month. I could have had things hard. I did. I dropped out of college, and I had to figure out how to get back into college again. And I had to find out a job, and I had to find a place to live because we were very old school. I was living on my own by 19. But all of my friends were in the same place. It's a thing to remember that it can be hard, it can be rough, and it's still not the same for all of us. Gorgeous. As much as we love being together on Sundays, we don't think church is limited to one day a week. We have programs, committees, opportunities all week long. You can find a complete listing on our website and in our weekly email. Here are a few highlights. The nominating committee is looking for leaders to serve on our board and our council. Church leadership can be a fulfilling way to live your faith. If you feel called to such a position, please speak to me after worship today. And La Hora del Café, our Spanish language appreciation group, is meeting on Thursday at 7:30 p.m. They're planning on a field trip and everyone is invited. Please see Esther for information. Our anti-racism action group will meet on Saturday on Zoom at 11 a.m. And see me if you'd like the sign-on information. And our ushers are going to pass a plate for donations. We're very grateful for your presence, for your willingness to be part of building the world we dream about. And we are always grateful for your financial support, which is particularly needed this year. Thank you for being with us today.
microphones are a little in and out today. Okay, this is now working. Can you hear me? Yes. Okay. So I'm going to tell you a story, and I'm telling you up front, this is not an easy story for me to tell you. And after it happened, I promised myself that I would tell this story truthfully and honestly, that telling the story would be part of my own attempt at healing our broken systems. So I was in graduate school, I was in Boston. It was Christmas Eve. My sister and her husband and I had been at my parents' house in New York for the holiday. We decided to go to this cool church in Connecticut for the midnight service. While driving to Norwalk, Connecticut, I was pulled over for speeding. The officer said that I was doing 70 and a 40. Now, I'm going to be honest with you here, that does seem a little unlikely, just as an aside, not actually relevant to the story, but it does. I was like, feels like you need a little intention to go 70 and a 40, and there were a lot of cars. So I was kind of like, really? But the cop is sort of muttering under his breath about New York drivers and whatever. So in Connecticut, if you go 70 and a 40, it's actually a misdemeanor. It's not just a regular speeding ticket. So this is more of a thing, and he told me that I had to appear in court. You can't just sort of send something in. So the punishment for this charge is $200, and in order for me to get to Norwalk, I had to take time off of school and of work, which was already costing me money, and $200 was really out of reach for me at the time. So I needed to figure out how not to pay this. So I went to the courtroom on the right day and I waited my turn. The room was like something like a small amphitheater. There were like rows of tiered stadium-style seats in a semicircle all facing the center where the judge sat. And in front of him, so he was at one of those, whatever, and in front of him is a long table where there's a prosecutor, and then there are several police officers, and there's a man who's calling out names and case numbers. I was there like an hour before I was called. And in that time, something became clear to me. I was the only white person in that room other than the people who worked there. Nearly all the other people were young black men. The judge was a gray-haired white man who seemed very sure of himself and his opinions. Every defendant who came before him got not only an official judgment, but some advice about this person's life and how they should be living it. His words were self-righteous and sanctimonious. He seemed uninterested in anyone's story, their history, or the consequences of his judgment. I also learned while sitting there that there were only two choices in this court. You could plead guilty and accept whatever consequences are doled out, or you could plead not guilty, which meant setting another court date and then bringing the court to trial. And there was really no way that I could go to trial, aside from this expense for me of trying to get back to Connecticut. It was really just my word against this cop. So there's no reason for anyone to think that I was gonna win at trial. So I needed a third option, and I made a plan. I saw first that most of the people in the room were wearing street clothes as I was, but I was wearing this coat. I bought this coat for next to nothing on like deep discount hanging on some rack somewhere, but I later learned that the coat retailed at $900. This is a long time ago too. So I thought, well, I can look fancy. And I closed my coat so that you couldn't see my clothes. And I was hoping that it made me look maybe a little more relatable for this judge. When I was called, I went up and I spoke very softly. As a young woman, I had been taught how to do exactly what I was going to do. Most of the messages I got were implicit, but a few were explicit. I was once stuck, I may have told you this, I was once stuck in the Heathrow airport. I was there for 24 hours. There was an air traffic controller strike. I was never getting out of Heathrow. I was never getting out. And my mother said, find a young man at British Airways and cry. And I did. And I was on a plane to Dublin within an hour. So here I was, it's like a year or two later, and I'm standing in front of this judge. And I kept my eyes wide. I kept my mouth shut while he spoke. He asked, how do you want to plea? And I said, well, I didn't do it, but I don't really know what to do about that. I mean, I was driving to midnight mass on Christmas Eve with my grandmother, who, by the way, not in the car, and she's Jewish. I said if I was speeding, she'd have yelled at me, and I smiled. I was playing the role of this man's daughter. I painted a very wholesome picture that he could identify with. He smiled back. He said, well, you can plead guilty. You could plead not guilty. And I said, well, I'm in graduate school, and I really don't have any money or the time to come back to Connecticut, but I also really don't have $200 for a speeding ticket. And he looked at the prosecutor and said, really, $200? And the prosecutor, a white man in his 40s, gently, even apologetically confirmed. And I repeated that it's a lot of money, and I wasn't even speeding, but I guess I don't have much of a choice. I'm going to have to plead guilty and just find a way to pay for it. I may have even said something about borrowing the money from my dad. The judge said, okay, then how do you plea? And I responded with a look of defeat, guilty. He then brought his gavel down and said loudly, a plea of guilty is accepted. All fines and fees will be suspended. And more quietly, he said, sometimes the police are wrong, and added, since you're out of state, there won't even be insurance implications. I smiled and said, thank you. And I walked out the door, never having to reach for my wallet. The drive back to Boston was painful. I was so deeply ashamed of what I had done. I used my whiteness, my femaleness to get what I wanted. None of the black men in that room had that choice. I manipulated my racial identity in a system that was designed to benefit me, and I did it on purpose. That is my confession, but it does not lead me to absolution. It has, though, led me to a change in behavior. I have never, and I think I will never, leverage my racial identity for my benefit again. Although, to be clear, I don't have to be so intentional about it for my whiteness to work for me. As I said, the system is designed for me. As we move into Black History Month, I think it's good for white people to think about the role of repentance. I don't mean, and my God, I really don't mean, and I know so many people will think that what I mean, but I don't mean that we should apologize for being white. Like some of you, I hear that all the time. Why should I, or why should my children have to apologize for being white, or feel guilty for being white? No, please don't. We are all born who we are, and it's all good. It is beautiful. We are loved and saved, every one of us. Your culture, your body, it's all good. Not only should no one apologize, we should celebrate all of it. And we have to be aware of the ways that living as a white person is easier in this time, in this place, than living as a person of color. There are roadblocks white people don't bump up against. There are advantages we might not even notice. And there are times we have choices about how to work a situation to our benefit, and we've all learned how to do that. If we're going to transform this system, dismantle racist structures that control our society, white people will have to begin with an acknowledgement of the advantages we experience in this system. And we have to confess. And we have to repent. And then we have to get to work. But the work doesn't happen without the confession. It's so much easier to do the external work than the internal work. And I mean, to be transparent, we get accolades for the external work. Like in liberal circles, anti-racism work leads to greater social standing. The same isn't true of internal work. It's just one reason so many people declare themselves anti-racist, but don't actually do the hard work. Making a confession like the one I made, that's a social risk. While every white person has, whether or not they know it, used their racial identity to their advantage, saying it out loud isn't common. The responses in admitting it can range from condescending to self-righteous. It's not comfortable. It will lead to no social climbing, but it's necessary. It's the work, it's the real work. What liberals prefer is to point out someone else's racist behavior. We love catching someone on video doing something heinous or judging someone freely and publicly who tripped over their own privilege. Yelling and pointing at a white person who did something wrong, who acted out of racist instinct is all well and good, and it sets up some norms. But if we don't see ourselves in that person, in that behavior, we will continue to perpetrate it. It is not about them, but about us. We have to understand that we swim in the same waters of white supremacy that define American culture. And unless we are willing to acknowledge that we swallowed some of that water, we're never going to get out of this pool. To all of us who are white, this is our work. It is not glamorous. It can be painful. We might feel shame. That's normal. Let it be. Discomfort is the beginning of transformation. If we want to live in a world defined by equity and inclusion, if we want all people to be truly free, we can't avoid the difficult internal, sometimes confessional work. But it's not for nothing. There is a world beyond this moment, a world we can see and are sometimes part of. I was watching my 14-year-old son and his friends sitting around a table eating pizza recently. They're white, black, Latino, their parents are born here, some are born somewhere else, some speak English, some speak Spanish at home, some have money, some struggle, and they were all laughing and eating and joking and playing. They were equals at the table, friends, unaware of how hard generations before them had to work to make that table uneventful. It was normal, just kids hanging out together. That's my vision of a new world, a world where everyone eats and laughs and is included. And it's right here, it's here in front of us, ready to claim us, if only we'll let it. I can see it, I know you can too, because we have a multiracial, multicultural congregation here, a place people pray together and play together, care for each other, love each other in visible and tangible ways. Getting where we want to go won't be easy, but it is beautiful. It is life-giving. It requires all of us, all of who we are. But in return, we become so much more. We do this work because we love each other, because we want the most life, because we want the most health, because we want the most joy for each other. We want to do the work because we love. James Baldwin has this gorgeous piece called Nothing Personal, in which he talks about how if someone we love is in Hong Kong, we would always know what time it is in Hong Kong. We would know the weather, the politics. We would know everything there was to know because that's where our love is. He goes on to say that if it meant we could be with our love, we would leave our homes behind, would cross the ocean, or if we couldn't cross the ocean, he says, we would empty the ocean with a homemade spoon to reach our love. When we love, when we truly love, we sacrifice. We pour ourselves out for the other. When I was in that courtroom, I loved only myself. I forgot my place. I forgot that we are all connected. I forgot that who I was mattered to everyone else in that room, that we belonged to each other. There is hope in love. Again, James Baldwin says, I'm quoting him now, for nothing is fixed forever and forever and forever. It is not fixed. The earth is always shifting. The light is always changing. The sea does not cease to grind down rocks. Generations do not cease to be born, and we are responsible to them because we are the only witnesses they have. The sea rises, lovers cling to each other, and children cling to us. The moment we cease to hold each other, the moment we break faith with one another, the sea engulfs us and the light goes out. But not today. Today we hold faith. We love, we cling, we witness, we claim, we belong each to the other, forever and forever and forever. Let's sing together, number 1035. Freedom is coming.
Oh, freedom, oh, freedom, oh, freedom, freedom is coming. Oh, freedom, oh, freedom, oh, freedom, freedom is coming. Oh, freedom, freedom, oh, freedom, freedom is coming. Oh, freedom, freedom, oh, freedom, freedom is coming. Oh, yes, I know. Oh, yes, I know. Oh, yes, I know. Freedom is coming. Oh, yes, I know. Oh, yes, I know. Oh, yes, I know. Freedom is coming. Oh, freedom, oh, freedom, oh, freedom, freedom is coming. Oh, freedom, freedom, oh, freedom, freedom is coming. Oh, yes, I know.
The words are in your program. Knowing how quickly the flame of truth may be extinguished, how easily the chalice of fellowship broken, let us be vigilant in faith, keep peace in our hearts, and make care for one another the watchword of our lives together. So our light goes out everywhere into the world. Our light goes out everywhere healing and hope are needed. Let us go in peace to love and serve this world and one another. It's good to be with you.